Welcome to Saddle Up Live, a transformative podcast tailored for women aged 40 and beyond, where courage, God's grace, and a touch of sass are the driving forces behind conquering life's challenges. Join me, Lesa, as I take you on a captivating ride through the multifaceted aspects of womanhood in this vibrant stage of life, covering everything from my journey through breast cancer, the intricacies of marriage, and the joys of motherhood, to the exciting adventures of grandparenting. Together, we will uncover actionable strategies for personal and professional development, providing you with the tools and inspiration needed to blaze new trails and seize every opportunity that comes your way, no matter what your age or stage. Welcome, listeners. I'm so happy that you're here today. I have JJ Flizanes. She's here today. And I remember I had JJ on doing Divorce Different years ago. And I remember I was kind of nervous. It was one of my first ones. And I'm like, she's kind of a big deal. I mean, you've written a couple of books, you're interviewed often. And I've been following you a little bit in your career. And I think what I really love about JJ is that she works with the emotional and the physical kind of together. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
It all goes together. The spiritual, the mental, emotional, it all goes together.
You've got a couple of different podcasts. You've got things you're doing to help people feel better about themselves. And we're going to really dig into that. I want to know what led you in this journey to where you are today, helping people as you are.
That's a long story that has twists and turns, but the bottom line is I'm a seeker. I've always been curious about human behavior and why people act the way they do or feel the way they do. My last, I don't want to say career or profession because I'm still doing it, it was a personal trainer. And there are many things that led to that, but the personal trainer in me was still extremely curious about more than just the body. And as I was learning more, I was desiring to help people in different ways. My clients weren't very interested in that. They just wanted what I was already doing. So I started a podcast and attracted people who wanted to do the emotional work. I started my podcast to help save my marriage, which wasn't meant to be saved, but was meant to teach me what I learned so that I can help save other people's marriages if they are meant to be saved, and to help people really get to the root cause of their patterns and their habits and their emotions.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fitness piece too. And this is what I have to tell you. I had this aha, and I was thinking before you got on, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to talk about this or not. It's funny. So I recently, through the summer, had a cancer diagnosis and went through treatment. And it's something that I don't love to talk about. I do talk about it because I know it helps people, but it makes me uncomfortable. But I have been talking about it, and I did really, really well through all the treatment. And I just did a radical change. I had breast cancer and I had to go through chemo and radiation. But the really good thing was it was early detection. So it was not spreading. It was not, it was all was good. And I was so thankful for that. For the first time, JJ, in my life, I loved my body. I loved my body. And it took that super scary, traumatic event in my life to get me there. Now, I have been coaching, and I knew if I want to get fit and lose weight, I've got to believe that I'm worthy and love myself, and then it'll happen. But I could not get there until I got that diagnosis. So I'm so happy that you're here today, because I think let's help people get there. Because now that I love myself, voila, I'm super fit, I'm super healthy, I'm the weight that I've always wanted to be. Interesting, isn't it? How it took my emotions to get me to really do the work, to really change my life. And so when I was listening to your podcast today, and these women were talking about loving your bodies and feeling good, that hit me. And that was a really big aha. And I kind of knew that in the back of my mind that I needed to love myself and feel that way to move forward. But I love that you're sharing that with the world, and let's help people not have to go through a diagnosis to get there.
Well, that would be ideal, but, there is an emotional root to breast cancer that we can talk about or not talk about, because if you skip over that, then while you do love your body now and that's great, we don't want to ignore how we manifested cancer in the first place,
Okay.
because that's also emotional. It wasn't just some mistake, like it's in the air and you get it. Cancer grows in a situation in a soil. So think of it like gardening. If you try to plant a lot of seeds in a certain place in the ground and they don't grow well, it's because the soil isn't good. And there's multiple reasons. It could be that the sun isn't hitting it. It could be that it's lacking nutrients. It could be that the wind is too hard and it blows the soil away and the seed can't root itself, whatever. Anyway, that's considered a terrain based approach to cancer or a terrain based approach to life, looking at all the components and
Yes.
parts because you can't, it's a long-term process. It's not an overnight. Someone just doesn't get cancer tomorrow after last week's exposure to something. It takes
Mhm.
years. It's
Mhm.
years and years. So looking back at what created this and I'm guessing the episode you listened to was about the Date Your Body group that I just started this
Yes.
year, which is kind of combining the emotional work with the physical work that I've done. And of course, the course follows similar protocols that I do in any small group coaching program. They're high touch, intense, high level group programs, which means they have access to me and the group and the content, 24/7, pretty much for however long the group goes on. But when you said let's help them get there without the contrast, sometimes that's not possible if
Mhm.
we're not looking at what leads up to having the diagnosis of the thing is like the fruit on the trees. Like the fruit that's not very good because the roots aren't good. But we don't know the roots aren't good until the fruit comes out and we go, "Oh,
Right.
this isn't really good." Like it's an indicator. And for most people, I mean, that's why I have a program called Rewiring Your Core Wound Patterns. And I created that. And I mean, I can teach somebody what their core wound patterns are and create a core wound map. But when I hand it to you, the likelihood is you're not going to do it because we are programmed to keep ourselves safe. We are programmed to not stretch beyond our comfort zone. And in the
Mhm.
comfort zone are where your habits and patterns and beliefs are. So we need to be pushed outside of that. And life experience, like getting cancer, is something that pushes you beyond that. Because when you have to
Mhm.
face your mortality all of a
Mhm.
sudden when you didn't think you had to, it is a life experience that then changes now how you approach the rest of your life. I just did a workshop called the Embodied Healing Intensive. And we did a lot of body centered things there and things that weren't body centered, but it all came back to where do I hold this stress or tension in my body? Where am I connected? Where am I disconnected? Where can I sense and feel? And where am I blocked? And we looked at the body in that way, but there's also the next level of, to me, if someone wants a really, like if you're on a spiraling journey and you have a diagnosis that you can't get out from under because the fear is so great that you keep yourself in non healing,
Yeah.
then I've been using plant medicine with clients to help them break through because, again, life experience teaches. Information is great and we get it all the time. And I have podcasts too, and people listen and they go, "Oh, yeah," and they get it and they hear it,
Yep.
but they don't live it. And it's hard to create a scenario or life experience with, again, the tools and the comfort zone that you live in and the patterns that you have and the beliefs that you have. It's really sometimes challenging to break through that because you don't have a tool. And plant medicine becomes a tool that can take you on a journey that you aren't expecting and that you aren't in control of, which is exactly what most people need because we try to control our lives, which is such a fallacy and a farce anyway,
Mhm.
because you want to avoid pain. But pain doesn't have to be, it's like pain versus suffering. We're gonna have pain. We're gonna have
Yeah.
emotional pain. We're gonna have discomfort. Whether you move through it or repress it is gonna determine whether you get sick from it or it's energy in and energy out, just like air in and air out, or food in and food out.
Can you talk more about that? Because when you're talking about pain and suffering, I get what you're saying. And this is something that's new to me, that, okay, I've got to feel these feelings like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. And so I have learned to become aware of that and sit with it because I don't want to stuff it down anymore. I want to feel it and I want to be able to move on. So I think I get a little stuck I'm a little stuck there right now because I'm like, okay, I feel it. Now what do I do with it?
Let's
Not
talk about that.
given.
And I can do a little, I have a handout that I often share on a podcast. You can't find this on my website because anyone looking for it without understanding how to use it, it would be useless. So I'll give you the link. It's jjflizanes.com/feelings list. So feelings with an S, feelings list. And I'm going to walk through quickly 3 ways to process emotion. The first problem is that most people can't even identify what most of their emotions are. That's the first problem. And so this page has 100 different feeling words on it. That would be the first step. The second would be, can I identify where it is in my body? Like, where do I feel anger? Where do I feel nervousness? Where do I feel worry? Where do I feel fear? When we don't know what part of our body tells us. Now, in Chinese medicine can tell you where you feel, lungs are where we hold grief. So when someone has a death in the family or something they haven't gotten over, they'll often get bronchitis or they'll be susceptible to cold because we hold grief in the lungs. And so if the lung channel's not cleared, meaning let go of the emotions, experience them, process them, have a new interpretation about them and a new relationship with them, then you're going to get stuck in this pool of chi, like energy, body energy, where it's being activated all the time. So lungs are grief, your liver is anger, your kidneys are fear, your stomach is worry, your spleen is worry, your heart obviously is love. But anyway, so these are just different parts in Chinese medicine where the chi in our body, the energy that flows, it gets stuck. And when you have an emotion that you're not processing, that energy gets pulled. In fact, in Chinese medicine, cancer doesn't exist. It's called stagnant stagnant chi, stagnant stuck energy. Like they don't look at a tumor and say it's a tumor. They say it's stagnant energy. It's stagnant
Mhm.
chi. So there's 3 steps to this process. And the first one is to ask yourself when you're having a negative emotion, to stop for a second and identify it. Now, if it's super huge, the trigger's really big, you want to feel the feelings. So if you have to
Mhm.
cry, cry. If you're angry and you want to scream or hit something or break something, that's fine. Do it in a controlled manner. Yell into a pillow, rip a pillow up, punch something, go outside and break something. Again, don't hurt anybody else while you're doing this, but there are healthy ways to process anger and emotions. And I'll give you one more little quick fact about anger for anyone that's out there who deals with anger, yours or somebody else's. Anger on the vibrational scale of emotions is the last place that we feel powerful and in control. The reason why people swirl in anger is because anger is not the end of the story. It's not the truth of what you're actually feeling. Anger is just where you land because it feels better, it feels righteous. It's usually in a blame way. You want to blame somebody else. You're mad at somebody. But the truth under anger, so anyone who's angry or has someone else that's angry, ask the question, what am I really afraid of or sad about?
Mm.
And I would ask that same question of someone else who's dealing with a lot of anger. They're either really sad about something or have a lot of fear about something. But the problem is when we go underneath anger, people don't like to be vulnerable because they feel like they're going to lose control. Well, guess what, guys? Emotion is about losing control. Like
Mm.
you have no control. Your control is you're stuffing it and then you're getting sick because you're stuffing it. So anyway, you find out what's going on underneath the anger, but you'd ask yourself, what am I feeling? Okay. So if you're having an emotion, experience the emotion. And if you're stuck because you've stuffed them so much and you don't know how to express them, then possibly be with yourself for a few minutes to do this exercise and see if you can connect to where it is in the body so you can let it out. All right. So number 1, what am I feeling? Now there's 100 different feeling words on this list for a reason. Under mad, there is irritated. So if I say to you, Lisa, I'm irritated versus I'm enraged. What's the difference between irritated and rage?
It's a bigger you're
Intensity.
yep.
Yeah, like if I'm standing next to somebody and I said, "What's going on with you?" Well, I'm irritated. I'm like, "Oh, okay." If I ask somebody who I'm standing next to, "What's going on with you?" I'm stepping away.
Yeah.
That's how I'm reacting to someone who's in rage. I'm not gonna stand next to them. They're in rage. That means they could start swinging at any moment. So you need to identify correctly the level of intensity of whatever feeling that you're having, which is why you wanna hone in on a
Yep.
couple different feeling words. So step 2, this is the game changer for any emotion that you cycle around. So if you're constantly having a certain reaction to people or to a stimulus or to a trigger, and you're wondering why you always feel so badly about it,
Mhm.
you're going to look at the needs. So you're going to identify what need is not being met or the perception, air quotes, of a need that's not being met. I'll give you a quick example on that. So in the case of relationships with love languages, so if your partner's love language is acts of service and yours is touch, and you're waiting for them to touch you. So I'm going to assume maybe most of your listeners are women, but it doesn't matter. It could be either. So whatever, whoever your partner is, if your love language is touch and you just keep waiting for touch and waiting for touch, but they keep giving you acts of service because that's their love language, you might tell yourself a story that they don't love me,
Mhm.
which is not true. So you have a need for connection and for touch, but you're misinterpreting and you're deciding that this person doesn't love you because you're not getting it the way that you want it, even though they're giving it to you, but you're not receiving it. So it's not a question to say, if I have a need that's not being met, it's someone else's problem. It's
Right.
understanding that you have a need that's not being met and it's yours. And we're going to uncover what it is, because whatever it is creating this feeling that you're having. Most people don't even know they have needs. You have 86 basic human needs, period. And this isn't even about, there's nothing to do with dependent or smart or needy. No judgment. Needs. Every single need on this list is a human need that every person on the planet needs.
Is one of them controlling things?
Control is actually not a need, because control isn't real.
I need to look at that list and see what all those needs are.
I'll read some of them to you.
Okay.
So, or you want to give me a situation, I can diagnose it for you with this if there's something
Oh,
that
well
you
well,
cycle.
so I was just thinking of myself and how you were talking about control. I felt like I was always in control of my health because I did take pretty good care of myself, give or take some of it. And so when I sit and I think about so I know that my relationship with God really grew through this because I had to let it go. I had no choice but to let that go. However, it still swoops in and I think if I can do everything, I if I can control this. So when I think of kind of the fear of I don't want this to ever happen again, right? So that fear of getting sick. So I can't control that. That's what I feel like my need. So what's my need?
Well, honestly, this is an interesting conversation to have with you, especially with the new God conversation, because I do this with anybody with any religious, like, strong practice. Because I know so many people, my mother, and one of them, and my ex husband's grandmother, who would be worry all the time about things. And I'd say, "Hey, grandma, you go to church, right? You believe in God?" "Oh, yes, I do."
Mhm.
"Well, don't you think God has a plan?"
Mhm.
"So then let God have the plan. It's not up to
Mhm.
you." Worry is a waste of time.
Mhm.
If you actually believe in what you believe, then trust it. That's the
Right.
bottom line. If you don't trust it and it's something nice to think about, what you're probably searching for is trust, because you actually don't trust that either you're going to be okay, or that if you're not, it's what's in the divine plan.
Right. Yep.
Right. And so those things, so step two is to figure out what the needs are. And there's probably more that's in there, because control is not a need. You're not going to find that on this list. So step three is, all right. So after you determine, so let's say yours is trust and safety.
Mhm.
So step three is creating strategies, more than one, two at least, three would be best, but 2 to 3 strategies that can help you get your need met. And here's the most important part, that doesn't require anyone else to be different.
Okay.
So we can't say, I need you to, I need him to,
Right.
I need her to, I need them to.
Okay.
Okay, that's victim. You have zero control over anybody else. The need is a greater need, and your circumstance is just mirroring what your need is. And it doesn't even mean you have to leave or change the situation. It just means you need to get your need met. I have several examples, but a quick one is when I was in my last relationship, I would go to a family reunion, and it's in a place where people are different than me, like very different. And like, I eat very differently. I am just different. And so the fear, of course, is that I'm not going to get any of my needs met. So when I would think about it, I would feel strangled. I'd feel trapped. Now, trapped is not a feeling. That's an interpretation. So what I would feel actually is scared,
Mhm.
frustrated, because of the lack of freedom. Anyway, so I'm scared, I'm afraid, I'm nervous, I'm worried. Those are the feelings. All right, so what's the need? Well, the need is for, I had several needs. The first one was for freedom. And so when I figured out my need was for freedom, like to come and go as I please, I decided to rent a car. Did it cost me more money? It absolutely did. But did I feel a million times better knowing I could pick up the keys and didn't have to ask permission from anyone to go anywhere? Yes. I had a need for sustenance, a need for nutrition and health. And I don't like what they were eating. So I took that rental car and took myself to the grocery store and I bought myself some food for the week. And I put it in the refrigerator of the place I was staying. Okay, check. I don't have to eat what they're providing. I am a grown person who can go buy my own food. So no, you can't blame other people. So check that. The last need that I uncovered was that I'm big on connection and depth and talking and
Mhm.
asking questions. I'm curious and they're not talkers. So I can't so here's a situation where I can't ask them to be different to make me happy. So what I did was I decided to treat this like a silent camp. I'm going to go and connect with myself. I'm going to take my journal. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to listen. And I'm going to
Mhm.
keep people start talking to me and like wanting to connect. So I attracted what I wanted because I got my need met myself without putting it on them or making it about them.
Yep.
So these are the 3 steps.
All right. Can I ask you, so if mine is trust and so I get like trusting myself, but help me through this a little bit. So I have to come up with 3 strategies,
To
right?
create trust. Now, so for you, I would say it's time to learn about the other 8 parts of the terrain that you may not know about that help to create the cancer. Because if you don't understand all the factors, then you can't look at the behavior or the beliefs or the patterns that cause this.
Well,
If we're lip yeah.
I love that you're saying that because it's so timely because I am on a quest. I also have come to the conclusion that the one thing I was really not working on was reducing that stress and being playful and having fun and community with people. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it's even deeper than that. So, yes,
Okay.
so here's the thing about genetics, sorry in advance. Your genetics don't matter. I know that's gonna go against what most people say. Because your genetics the genetics load the gun, but your environment, it pulls the trigger. So, epigenetics, which is more
Right.
important than genetics, right, is the expression of your genes based on your environment. So, yes, the stress, but even identifying what that means to you. So, I'll tell you what the emotional root of breast cancer is. There's a couple. One is one is mother wounds. So whether it be that you didn't want to be a mother and you were a mother, or that you have a negative relationship with your mother, you didn't get the love that you wanted from your mother, you weren't mothered. So mother is a huge component, whether it be your mother, and then there's the idea that you've been sucked dry, overgiving to everyone else, putting everyone else in front of you. Okay, right. But that comes from a belief that you have to prostitute yourself for love or perform for love or that you're
Yes.
are you right. Okay, but that belief has to change. So understanding that pattern where that comes from and then how that shows up in your life has to change in order
Yes.
for that not to happen again. Because if that's what causes stress, and again, stress very easily. If you think about like even if you're doing all the right things physically, you're taking the
Mhm.
perfect supplements, you're exercising, you're meditating, whatever. You're doing all the things. But what's fueling the bubble that is your body is a negative belief or an underlying negative feeling, which, by the way, 88% of your subconscious, your feelings, like everything that happened in childhood, all your core wounds, that's 88% of what's embedded in your body. It's not your conscious mind, not your conscious brain. We'd all say, I'd never ask for that. Who the heck would ask for that? Why would I want that? Nobody would. But what we don't understand more recently, in the last
Mhm.
6 years, I've been working with people with core wounds because it runs your show. Your core wounds are the beliefs that are the foundation of every choice you make. And most of us don't know what they are
Yep.
because we don't go exploring them. Even if you're in a therapy, you're not even gonna know what they are because half the therapists don't do it either. Like, I know
Right.
people have been in therapy 10 years, not changed a darn thing. If I say, "What are your top 3 core wounds?" They have no idea.
Yeah.
Most people understand abandonment, and if you don't have to do anything to know, "I feel like I was abandoned." But the rest of the core wounds need a little bit of work, and then understanding how they show up in your life, and then how you keep them alive. Because that's the other thing. And you can say, "Well, my parents abandoned me." All right. So that happened how many years ago? Cool. What are you doing now to abandon yourself? Because it's about what
Right.
you continue to keep alive and active. And until you make those patterns go away and change them because you stretch beyond that into a different belief, which requires you to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
actually. So to go back to the initial ask of we get them there without cancer or a big thing, that would be great. But the majority of people don't seek help until they're in pain.
Yep.
And even when pain's knocking at the door, they ignore it. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until the pain goes and the body goes,
Yep.
"Time to throw the grenade." and lay you out so that you will finally listen.
It's so interesting too because what's been hitting me recently is what a people pleaser I am, which is kind of in line with what you're saying. I feel like I'm really ready to do this work. I feel like I need to have you back on or sign up to work with you because I am really having fun here and learning a lot. But I think that people pleasing thing is what I'm noticing right now that needs to heal. I don't quite know how to heal it.
So people pleasing would be on my map, like what happens when I get triggered. So the top 3 core wounds are what usually get triggered the fastest, and then you have an emotion and you have a reaction. So the people pleasing is the reaction, but we don't know what the
Okay.
wound is. We have to figure
Okay.
out what the wound is.
All right.
So, like, this kind of work is, I mean, I have a course called the Roadmap to Emotional Healing. It's a self-study course. Anyone can do it and get it, and it would help you get closer to those answers. You could start sort of a basic map. I've
Mhm.
since fine-tuned this 3 levels deeper than I did when I created that course, but it's a place to start identifying and seeing the patterns. And
Okay.
depending on astrology, like what your moon sign is, mine is Sag. So when I see something, sometimes when I just see the pattern, that's all I need to change it. Now, not everyone's like that, which is why I had to create a course and then put people through more rigorous things because some people will be completely aware of what the problem is and never do a darn thing about it. So, and then how they learn, their learning style is different. And that's important when you're choosing how to work on something because generally, I have a free talk on my website called The 3 Reasons Why Talk Therapy is Ineffective.
Mhm.
It's just at jjflizanes.com, so, I mean, it'll be right there on the homepage. And this isn't for anyone who's in therapy doing EMDR and hypnosis and tapping and, different kinds of guided visualizations or whatever, or even this work that I'm doing, but it's not common. It's not common, and so people will think, "Well, I've been told that if I have a problem and I need to talk to somebody, mental health, then you go to a therapist." But if all you do is tell the same story over and over again, month after month and year after year, you're not learning anything new. You're not
Mhm.
changing any perceptions. You're not gathering more information, which then would feel different and also make different choices. Because we stay stuck in what we know and we don't learn anything new. Because most
Mhm.
therapists aren't teaching you things that are new. They're just asking you questions. They're validating your experience. They may be looking to help you understand it in a different way, but there's no new framework.
Mhm.
What's going on with them that made them do this and how it's not about you at all? I had a client in my I attempted to do I have so my Rewire is a 6-month course. It's called Rewiring Your Core Wound Patterns and Evolving Beyond Your Story. And I had a gentleman in there who excelled very quickly because he has that kind of learning style too, where when I just give him a different version of the story, everything
Mhm.
shifted. He went from hate his dad, feeling like his father never loved him and being an addict because of that and super violent and angry and depressed and the whole 9 yards. And he had gone to his therapist and he came back and said, "Okay, so I just had my therapy around anger about my dad." I'm like, "What? Tell me the story." And then I went, "Well, let me tell you why you're wrong." And then I reinterpreted and I used the frameworks that I was teaching them. And all of a sudden, he went from thinking his dad never loved him to be able to see clearly through his actions and behaviors how his father did love him. And it
Mm.
changed everything. Did. And so now when he looked back, instead of feeling pain, he felt love.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. I'm gonna take that course, and then before we go, I have to ask you one more question because you mentioned that when you're naming you name that feeling, right? And then you think about where it is in your body so that you can let it go. How do you let it go? Like, you feel it, and then how do you let that go?
Well, you could be present in the pain. So if your chest starts to get tight, or your stomach starts to get tight, or your neck start and your shoulders start to get tight, it's being able to stop for a second and breathe into it and say, "What's going on for me? This is what I'm feeling." If you can't identify what the feeling is, you just allow it. So in terms of if you can identify what it is, so for instance, if it's an angry feeling, you're probably not gonna have tears, and depending on the level of intensity, it might just be as simple as, "Well, what need is not being met now? It's causing me to be really irritated right now. Like, what's the problem?"
Mhm.
And then you could, at that, like, level of intensity, get it solved. Look at the need and go, "What's the problem?" "Oh, oh." Like, so my first or second book, I don't even know anymore. They kinda got published. There was a whole, like, switcheroo. Anyway, Fit to Love. Fit to Love: How to Get Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually Fit to Attract Love of Your Life. That book is literally about being the blueprint to attract you. Because if you don't love and care for yourself, why
Mhm.
would you think anybody else will?
Mhm.
So, but unfortunately, we believe that our need to get met by other people. That's what we've been modeled. Oh, if you want to feel love or connection, you have to get it from somebody else versus I have
Right.
to give it to myself.
Yes.
So when we start to understand that, and maybe it makes you sad, so you allow it to, it's getting to know yourself. It's learning how to be in your body and not in your head and breathing into what the feeling is. What does that feel like for me? Now, you don't have to stay there, especially if nothing's happening, but you can move through it to say, well, what's the need? And you can identify.
Okay.
At my event, I had to pivot. Law of attraction said, it's time for you to grow. And I was like, ooh, not ready. Not ready. I'm really comfortable. Nope, too comfortable. I'm gonna make you pivot. And I like lost it. And I usually cry at my events anyway. But there's usually something that comes up for me. And it did at the end. And I just sort of broke in two. And I was like, what? And like on camera, to everybody in the room. And it was only yesterday that because I let it be. I didn't try to like fix it, or like I was sort of in the shock of it. And then I was allowing it, and then I got an idea, and I got excited, and I got clarity, and then I started to work on it, like, "What is this gonna look like now? I need to spend some time. What is this gonna look like now?" And then I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so excited. This is the best thing ever." But it took a couple weeks to get there. It's a pretty big thing. But, when someone I had a friend once when she's coming to town, she did not have my love language is quality time. And when I looked at her itinerary for her trip, she was gonna see me once for tea, and then she invited me to, like, go everywhere with her in LA, which I had no desire to do. And I kinda got bummed, and I realized in that moment, I was like, "Oh, her love language is not quality time." I just recognized that it made me sad that if I wanted to spend quality time with her, I was gonna have to get in my car and drive around LA and go meet her at different restaurants and all other things that she's acting like a tourist. I don't wanna do that. I wanted quality time in my house
Mhm.
alone to connect. So, that was a quick way to feel my feelings, and I might even have cried about it. But then I realized that her love language is gifts, not access, not quality time. She loves me. This isn't about her love for me. Hey, can we spend one more hour together somewhere, just the two of us? You ask for what you need.
Love that. Ask for what you need.
And it's okay if she doesn't say yes. I mean, she was here temporarily, but that's why, like with companionship, like there's a need for companionship. You can't turn to your spouse if your spouse's love language is not quality time and say, I demand you have to be my companion. It's like, no, that just indicates that your love language is quality time. So pick 5 or 6 people that you love to spend time with and put them on rotate them through your calendar.
Yeah. So good. So good. JJ, okay, this has been so enlightening, and I feel like my head is spinning a little because there's so much more I want to jump into. It's like you've kind of just and if people want to find you, is it just your website that's the best place?
Yep,
Okay.
jjflizanes.com. I mean, my podcast, I got a bunch, but Spirit, Purpose, and Energy would be where I would send people first. But again, check the homepage for that 3 reasons why. Here, there are 2 classes on the homepage for you. 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective,
Yeah.
and then the connection between emotions and healing. So it's how emotions affect healing and disease is the second class.
You have been such a treat. I really, really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. It was a fun conversation that just took me on a journey I didn't even know was coming my way today. So, JJ, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and I applaud your healing. Continue on so
Yeah.
you can find the trust and the safety that you need in the knowing of all the different factors that influence your body's ability to heal.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to another empowering episode of Saddle Up Live. As we conclude this exhilarating journey together, don't forget to subscribe, share your thoughts, and become a valued member of our vibrant community. Because, as always, every woman deserves to thrive, flourish, and live her best life. Until the next time, saddle up and keep conquering those trails.